Good morning and welcome to another week of our home learning timetable. So today on Monday we have a reading activity to start us off, so getting those bingo sheets out and really motoring through ticking those off. The different text types if possible, reading your own book if you prefer, or a little bit of both with the 20 minutes that we have for reading there. After that we have some work on types of nouns, so we've got common nouns and proper nouns that we're looking at there. There is a little clip there for you to look at that really explains it well, and the different alternatives to how we might pursue that depending on the resources you have at home. With maths we're looking at multiplying 2-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers, and I'll go through the method for that later on in the video to help you out there. Finally, at the end of the day, got a little bit of science building on from last week. We'd like to look at detecting sound and how our body is very good at that. And I've got a few activities there for you to do, depending on how you'd like to learn. And then finally, at the end of the day, we'll get creative, pick a creative task from our bingo sheet or one that we have in mind ourselves. So we're looking for types of nouns in English, and we have got two main types of nouns. We've got a common noun and a proper noun that we will be exploring. The video that I posted, that has got some really good learning there to help you understand the common noun and the proper noun. But very simply, common nouns are names of things that we find quite often and lots of them. So table, chair, people, cats, dogs, all different types of animals. There's more than one of them. They're called common nouns. They are common things, and that's why they are common nouns. On the other hand, we have proper nouns. Proper nouns have a capital letter to punctuate them. They are unique, and that's what that capital letter is showing. They're usually titles of things. So Mr. Emsley, Banksy, Class and Arnold, as you can see on the screen, they are proper nouns, and there's lots of them. Proper nouns also include initials or abbreviations. I'd like you to explore these types of nouns today. So given that there is a worksheet available if you'd prefer to do a worksheet, feel free not to print that off to copy the answers into your book if you would prefer to work like that, or if you really do want to and have the time and the resources, print it off and answer on there. Another way that we can do this though without printing anything is to draw a table like the one I've got on screen and have common nouns and proper nouns in those columns. Make a list of all the common nouns and proper nouns that you can find around the house in different texts. That could be any type of book, that could be on the back of packaging, anywhere. Remember, those proper nouns are unique and have capital letters, and those common nouns, we wouldn't use a capital letter to punctuate them. Hello, so today we're going to look at multiplying 2-digit numbers by a 1-digit number. So it's multiplying a number that's got 10s and 1s by a number that's just a 1. So I've got here 63 multiplied by 4. I'm going to show you the grid method first. Now you've got a choice of methods here to go with. The grid method is the first one I'm going to show you, and then I'll show you the expanded method in columns as well. And you choose the method that suits you the best. I know I prefer the column method, and in the classroom when we've done this, lots of children prefer the column method once they understand the principle that is within the grid method, which is looking at those 10s and those 1s. So it's 63 multiplied by 4 using the grid. I'm going to take the 4 and put it here because it's just a 1-digit number, and then I'm going to partition 63 into its 10s and its 1s. So children in year 3 and 4 will definitely be able to tell you that 63 has 6 10s, which is 60, and 3 1s, which is just 3. Now using the grid method, we've got individual multiplications here for each of the digits. The first one would be 4 multiplied by 60. Now because we know that 4 multiplied by 6 is 24, we know that 4 multiplied by 60 is 10 times greater and is 240. So in this first box here we're going to write 240. And we always tell the children it's 10 times greater. The little rhyme we tell them is don't get caught, add a naught, which is on the end there just to make it 10 times greater. Now the next multiplication we need to do is a little bit simpler. It's the 4 multiplied by the 3. And we know that 4 times 3 will give us 12. And that goes in there. Now after we've done that, what we need to do is put these two values together. So we've got our 240, and to that we need to add the 12, so that we've got the value of the 63 as opposed to 60 and 3 separately. So if we add the 240 and the 12 together, we end up with a total of 252. And 63 times 4 is 252. So with grid method there, we partition into the tens and ones, and we look at each individual digit to make it easier for us. I'll show you how we draw the grid as well, just because it can get a little bit tricky. So if we have another one, which is 82 multiplied by 5, we'll need a grid for this, and we know that it is a digit that has tens and ones. So across the top, we'll separate our grid to give us space for our tens and our ones, and we know we're just timesing it by a single one digit. Let's put the multiplication symbol in just to remind us, in case we forget. We know that we're multiplying 5 by 80 and 2, and when we partition 80 and 2, we have 8 tens and 2 ones. Now once again, we make the multiplication a little bit easier. We know that 5 multiplied by 8 would give us 40, which means 5 multiplied by 80, 10 times greater, would give us 400. So 5 multiplied by 80 is 400, and then finally we just need to fill in the final box, and 5 multiplied by the 2 would give us 10. Add the two values for the digits together, and you've got the total of 82 multiplied by 5, and 400 add 10, quite simply, it's 410. 82 times 10 is 410. Now as I said, there are two methods to this, one a little quicker than the other, and it builds on this one, and this is the column method. Now I've colour coded my numbers here, just to make it a little bit easier to follow. We don't have to colour code these when we write them in our books once we've got the method. It works in the same way, an expanded column works in the same way as the grid method, letting us look at our tens and our ones separately. So with our column here, we're going to start with these ones. We always start with ones when we're in columns. And we've got 3 multiplied by 4, which we know is 12. So we're writing 110 and 2 units in those columns, using those columns to organise our work. 110 and 2 ones, I should have said there, sorry. Now we're going to look at the tens digit and multiply that by 4. And as we said previously, if we know that 6 times 4 is 24, we know that 60, as this is, 60 times 4 is 10 times greater, and that gives us 240. Remembering not to get caught, we don't get caught, we add the naught. And then finally all we have to do, as with the grid method, is total up our ones, our tens, and our hundreds to have 252 as our total. On our next one, same again, we've got 82 multiplied by 5. I'm not going to colour code it this time, I'm just going to go straight in with it, start with our ones, and we know 2 times 5 is 10, using those columns to separate the 10 and the 1 digit. We know that 8 times 5 would give us 40, but we also know that this is 80, this is 8 tens. 80 times 5 isn't 40, 80 times 5 is 400, 10 times greater. Total up, no ones, 110, 400s, 410 for that one. So both methods using similar properties, columns a little bit faster, but grid method sometimes preferred just to give people the chance to look at things separately. I don't mind which method we use. I've provided sheets for both methods. Grids I've given for people on the sheet that's online. However, if you would prefer, you can just make your own multiplication problems here, as long as they're 2 digits times by 1 digit, a 10 and a 1 times by 1. I hope you enjoy this. It's a little bit of revision for us before we move on tomorrow for a little bit more, with our 3-digit numbers times by 1. So for afternoon lessons, we've got a bit of science. Last week we looked at how science is created with vibrations. We found lots of different sources of sound and noticed the vibration and how that may feel and what we may see with that. Today we're going to look at the ear itself and how it helps our body detect sound. And there's a good clip to help you out with this. I've also asked you to label the ear and its structure, its anatomy. The ear is really delicate inside and has lots of different bits that we need to look after if we are going to be able to hear properly. Try labelling the ear. You can do this in lots of different ways. You can print if you have that resource. You can draw a picture. You can just label on the screen by noting where these labels may go. Or if you'd like to, there's an interactive activity that I've linked in on our timetable as well. Now, after you've finished labelling the ear in whichever way you choose to do that, there's also a couple of activities to do. One of them is about our ear and looking after it. I've got a few sentences that I'd like you to finish with the words at the bottom in the word bank. Copying them into your book will help you learn about the ear and how to look after it, and how it could be damaged if we don't look after it. And the last part of today's lesson is planning an investigation. Now, I'd like you to think about this investigation as it would be something around your house. It would be an investigation around your house if you had a sound meter, a special machine that would measure sound and how loud it is. I'd like you to think about a question that you can investigate in your house, a question you could answer with a sound meter, thinking about where things may be louder or quieter. You'd have to think about what equipment you'd need to conduct that experiment, that investigation. Now, some of the other things we need to know is the dependent variable. What is we're going to measure? I imagine most of us will be measuring the level of noise, how loud things are, with our sound meter, which measures in decibels. Now, the other variable there is the independent variable. The dependent variable is the thing we're going to measure. The independent variable is the thing we're going to change. When you think about that, what is it we're going to change in this investigation? Is it the location of our investigation? Is it the things that are making the noise in our investigation? Or the people that are making the noise in our investigation? That's what the thing that we could change. And then finally, in our variables, there's a control variable. Now, these are the things we have to keep the same to make it a fair test. The distance that the sound meter is from the source of the noise, for example, would have to be the same in every single investigation to make it fair. And there's a few other things that you might need to think of to make this test fair. They're the control variables. And finally, you'll need to make a prediction if this is going to be a proper scientific investigation. Predict what the answer to your question is going to be and try and explain why you believe that to be true. I'd like to see some investigations if you've finished them. I think it's definitely something that is interesting to see and possibly worth some house points if we can get some good investigations here. And then at the end of the day, I'd like you to have a bit of creative time as well. So feel free to get that bingo sheet out.